6.6 billion rand in wages during strikes in 2012. And indications are that more than 24.5 million working hours were lost throughout the year due to 99 strikes, 54 of which were protected and 45 unprotected. Now, this is according to the Department of Labour's yearly statistical publication, the Annual Industrial Action Report 2012, that's still to be released by the department. To tell us more, we are joined from our Cape Town studio by Mildred Oliphant, who is the Minister in the Department of Labour. Minister, thank you so very much for joining us and welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks, Leanne, and good morning to the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, looking at those numbers, just to repeat them, 6.6 billion rand lost in wages during these strikes. Is this number concerning, especially with this year's labour action that has seen more industries being on strike? I mean, we're in the middle of it right now, and it's not looking too good.
Yes, it is concerning, Leanne, but also I think the negotiators must take the responsibility not to track the negotiations, because when they go on the table, they know what the demands are and they know where to settle, and if they don't agree, they have to go back and consult. Same thing applies to the representatives of employers, is that whenever they go to respond to some of the demands, they know what is the maximum and where they can also settle. And I think when the negotiations are taking place, both employers and the employees have to take that responsibility to look at the interest of our country first, which is the economy, and at the same time look at the interest of the workers as well, because when you are on strike, the principle of no work, no pay applies. And therefore, when they are on strike, the families are also affected, and at the same time, the economy is affected. And I think as South Africans, we must really take the responsibility to look at who should really suffer, because I don't think that we have to allow that situation.
Minister, the question really remains is that, as you mentioned at the beginning of your answer, wage negotiations are between the employer and the employees. When, however, does the department get involved? I mean, when we are looking at figures like 6.6 billion rand being lost, and particularly now with what's happening in the mining sector, when does your department take the initiative to say, we have to step in?
Immediately when the workers and the employers indicate that now there is a deadlock, then the CCMA intervene, because they have to facilitate that processes. And in most cases, you'll find that we have resolved more than 50% of those situations. And we have also told them that whenever there is a deadlock, we are ready to facilitate. And that's what we are doing as the Department of Labour.
Yeah. It seems more and more that with wage negotiations, they do result in strike action. How can this actually be avoided?
We can avoid it by negotiating honestly, both as employers and workers, because at the same time we'll find that we will encourage workers, particularly those who are organizers, to say, let the workers go on strike. It doesn't assist anyone, because at the same time when the workers are on strike, whether the strike is legal or illegal, but what happens is that the principle of no work, no pay just comes in. And therefore, that's why I'm appealing to say the negotiators and the leadership of the unions must really protect the workers, because at the end of the day, let's say the company agrees to pay a very higher increase, but in 2 months or 3 months down the line, the company will say, we can't afford, and therefore we will be retrenching. And I think let us avoid that. Let us look at the best interest of the workers, and let us look at the possibility of making sure that every worker is protected, and therefore whatever we discuss with the employers, and also the employers must also not look at the profit on the expense of the workers. I think here we have to really say, this is our country, this is where we want to take our country forward, and let us all look for the economy of the country. And even when we're negotiating, let us say what is the best interest of the workers and also what is the best interest of the country.
Yeah. Minister, just as a closing, would you at this point be aware of how many hours have been lost since the beginning of this year's industrial action? I know we're talking about last year, but this year, what is the scenario looking like?
We have not yet collected that information. Our people are gathering that information, particularly when we will be looking at the strikes that are over now, and there are also that are coming in. But I also want to appeal to the motor sector in particular to say whatever they do, they must be reasonable, and also the employers as well must be reasonable. They must finish this negotiation as soon as possible so that our economy should continue.
Mildred Oliphant, the Minister in the Department of Labour, thank you so much for being our guest here on Morning Live.